we're gonna have a fun, clean debate. If you guys have any questions that you think we should ask our lovely candidates, you can use the hashtag on Twitter, SMTXDebate15. And if you have any friends that were just dying to come to the debate but they couldn't, let them know we're periscoping it, and the links are on Facebook and Twitter. So, we're gonna get started. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, so the way we're gonna do this is you guys will each have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. And then when we go into the questions, you'll each have 2 minutes to answer, and you can have a 1-minute rebuttal time. Does that sound good? Yes?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, whoever wants to go first for opening statements, it's up to you guys.
You want me to try it, Frank? Go ahead. Okay. Thank you for inviting us tonight. I think the last time I spoke in this room, or one of these rooms, it was student government, I asked if they were going to participate, and there were more people here tonight than was at student government, so that may be the reason they're not participating. I've had the opportunity to lecture on campus here a couple of times every year for the last 6 or 7 years, and I always enjoy coming and speaking to the greatest and brightest here in the community for at Texas State. I'm the first person in my class, my family, to graduate from college, so I share a lot of experiences with many people here, I'm sure. I paid my own way through school. I got an undergraduate degree at A&M and an MBA from Harvard. But I've followed that with a successful business career and found my way to San Marcos in 2000, or in 1996. I've owned a business here for the last 20 years. I've been a resident in the community for the last 15. I hear you downtown. I live downtown. I live on the square, so I hear folks downtown. I've supported candidates that have been active in both supporting neighborhoods, protection of neighborhoods, as well as our environment for the last 10 years. I'm on the record for that. I'm for open and transparent government. And the most important thing I'm for are jobs, career-based jobs, not just any job. I mean, I know that many of you, we talk about jobs here, but the real issue is finding the jobs that will pay the mortgage, put food, clothing, and shelter on your kids' backs, get a good education for your children, and allow you the opportunity to stay here in San Marcos when you graduate. We owe you that. And the last thing is, I'm for protecting and respecting our river. It's important that we leave a legacy of our environment for our children and generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregson. Mr. Arredondo?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you for putting this forum on. I'm one of 5 generations of Arredondos here in San Marcos. I'm a business born in San Marcos. I also am a graduate of what was then Southwest Texas State University. I'm about 10. And also, like Mr. Gregson, I paid my way through school. And I got a good education, and it has taken me into various careers that I've really earned a lot of knowledge about people and management. I served on the city council back in the 70s, 74 to 79, and I also was the mayor at one point before I resigned because I moved out of the city. At the time I needed a larger home for my family, so the only one available was out of the city. I have lots of involvement in our community. I began by serving on the P&Z and then getting up to the city council. I've served in the community in various capacities. I currently am chairman of the Housing Authority. I was chairman of the Sunset Review Commission. And prior to that, I've served in various civic and community groups, always involved. When anything had to be done, I stepped up to the plate. I bring to you experience, leadership, and trust. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with questions.
Okay, Mr. Gregson, what is your past experience with holding public office? And if you haven't held public office, why do you think you're qualified to?
The only public office I held, and it really wasn't public office, it was vice president of the student body at A&M. I'm not a politician. I'm a business person. But I've also been very active in the community for the last 10 years. I've served on 15 various civic and private boards and commissions. I'm the vice chairman, the senior voting member of our Citizens Utility Advisory Board, which is involved in the setting, providing advice to council on setting water, wastewater, and electric rates. That represents about $100 million of our overall budget of $187 million for the city. So it's a substantial sum of money. I've been involved in transactions that are very large. I've got run companies. I've been CEO, a president of companies that have revenues rivaling that of the city. Employees, over 1,200 employees, which is many times over the city's current number of employees. So I've had a lot of experience and on running private companies, private sector companies. But I've also, in my board activity, and I talk about this when I'm lecturing here at the university, is volunteerism. The best way to learn leadership is to be able to find yourself on a board or commission where your vote is equal to everybody else's. You don't have any kind of, you're not a leader, you're not a follower, you're having to convince other people with your intellect, with your argumentative skills, and with your knowledge. So with all that said, with my private sector business experience, my academic background, my education, my experience on boards and commissions, I think I'm extremely well qualified to serve.
Okay, and Mr. Arredondo, what is your past experience with holding public office? And if you haven't, why do you think you're qualified to?
As I said in my opening statement, I have been a city councilman here in San Marcos. I've been mayor of this community, and I've been in the trenches. I know what it is to present public policy and get it approved. I also have served in numerous commissions and boards, just like I stated earlier. But most of all, I've been involved in my career in either management or in executive positions, assisting people. I've always said that my last two employment positions, Community Action of San Marcos and Housing Urban Development Community, was a ministry for me because I was able to assist people. I saw the needs that they wanted, and I was able to funnel the resources that I knew were available for them to help them get housing, get shelter, get food, get early Head Start programs. So I am very well versed in the public policy arena. What I want to let everybody know is that I had no intention of running for city council, but when I saw that the city council positions open, there was going to be a balance that was going to be interrupted, I decided to step up and step up to the plate. I've always been a person that when a job had to be done, I was the first one there. I went through the Marine Corps, and that's where I got my discipline and my way how to attack problems.
Okay, Mr. Gregson, as the university continues to grow, what role does Texas State play in the growth of San Marcos?
Well, I think we see every day how important Texas State is to our economy. I view it as, I like to describe it as shedding skin. Every semester we get a new group of young, talented, excited students who come here. That to me maintains a vibrant city for San Marcos. And I'm pleased to have the intellectual capacity that this university brings, the diversity it brings to our city. I think certainly from an economic perspective, your parents' pocketbooks represent you well when you're here, and we appreciate that. There's a lot of our businesses cater to the students. And as a city, we're growing. Obviously, we have people here in our neighborhoods as well. And there's the balance that has to occur. I've been an advocate on the part of students. I'm a businessman downtown. I've been an advocate on the part of the students to basically, you're our guests here during this period of time that you're here. We're your hosts. There is a relationship that we have. And so I'm very pleased to see the university continue to grow. I think that we have some growing pains that we're suffering together. But I think we can get through those with our comprehensive master plan. I think we have a way through to make sure that we have a symbiotic relationship between the existing community and the university.
Mr. Arredondo, as the university continues to grow, what role does Texas State play in the growth of San Marcos?
The The university has a big role in the growth of San Marcos. As has been mentioned, you students bring enthusiasm to our community, and you bring new money into the community that you live in, spending money on the rent, on the food that you buy, the gas that you buy, or when you go to the clubs. All new money into the community turns over 7 times, and we need that revenue. The city appreciates that revenue to maintain the services that we give. I think that the balance there that we do is communicate more with the university and the city and the county and the school district, so we can all work together and sort of guide the growth that the business community goes, the new business opportunities, as well as where housing for students take place. We can always find room, but what I am interested in is that neighborhoods, established neighborhoods, be respected, because as has been mentioned, we need a balance. But we need you all. We treasure the students in San Marcos, and we want you to participate in our community. In fact, I'm for jobs, new jobs in San Marcos, so that when y'all graduate, I want an opportunity for y'all to stay here and become part of our community, to make your own families here and qualify for a mortgage so you can bring our community closer together. You have the experience of being in the university, and then you can share that talent with the community. So I urge you to continue your education and help me get on the council so we can get more jobs for San Marcos where you can work.
Okay, Mr. Gregson, what do you feel are the biggest needs of your possible constituents, and how will you meet those needs if elected into office?
Well, the biggest needs are leadership, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we have a city that we've had a significant division in. Just as Mr. Arredondo pointed out, we have a balance, and it's a 4-3 balance, and that seems to be what we've had to fight in our city. I think we need to come together and have a more coherent vision for the city that we can all participate in. I think that through our comprehensive master plan, we have a vision, we have a way to move forward together that we've all agreed upon. And in doing that, we now are in the process of developing our land development code, which is the most important document that as we move forward, development that's the guidelines for development. Where, when, how, all those things are in that document. That's being written. It's going to be coming out back in probably March for approval by council. What that document says will be the guiding force for our development for the next 20 to 30 years. And its development lasts several generations. In fact, that document is going to impact what the city looks like for the next century. So it's important who we have serving, and it's important that we have someone who is on the record and has supported candidates tirelessly over the last decade for the environment, for the protection of our neighborhoods, and for an open and transparent government, so that we know where our money's spent, and we know 30 seconds. We know where our money's spent, and one thing that I'd like to point out that my business experience allows me the opportunity to do is that I know the questions to ask, the answers to expect, and I have a history of holding people responsible for the decisions that they make, so we can get the best use of our taxpayer dollars.
Okay, and Mr. Arredondo, what do you feel are the biggest needs of your possible constituents, and how will you meet those needs if elected into office?
The needs are jobs, good paying jobs. I want to ensure that we continue the growth that has recently been experienced by San Marcos, that the Greater San Marcos Partnership has brought to San Marcos. Epic Piping was the first big business that established in San Marcos. Amazon has come on board, they're breaking ground, and that's a bellwether for San Marcos. You're going to have the Teslas, the Googles, the Apples now look at San Marcos because we're a mark on the map. And with that, there'll be more jobs coming to San Marcos. More jobs means more homes, more sales in the community. But we need to be aware of that the way city operates is with general revenue funds, the property tax. And we need to have more affordable housing And these jobs that these companies are bringing to San Marcos will help us do that. So if you put me on the council, I know my opponent has talked about the new SMTX, the code development plan, the land development plan. That's all good, and we're going in the right direction. And there's plenty of time for citizens to participate and give their opinions before the document is approved. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Gregson, San Marcos has been the fastest growing city in the nation for 3 years running. Are you concerned that the infrastructure will be able to keep pace with the rapid growth of the city? Why or why not?
Yeah, and population-wise, that's exactly right. And I do have that issue. I do have that concern. That's a major apprehension of mine with respect to how we're going to handle this. I mean, with more people come more needs. But a lot of our own GSMP has pointed out, Greater San Marcos Partnership, our economic development partner, has indicated through their research that folks moving here have incomes lower than the incomes that we currently have in our community. That's concerning to me. We need to figure out ways, obviously, to employ those folks. At the same time, we need to understand what growth really means. It is going to stretch our services, and the way that we stretch them even more is by approving developments way outside of our existing core. If we stick a water and wastewater pipe out to a community and then we require roads to get out to that community, we require a fire station out to that community. Fire stations cost us $4 million to build. They cost us $3.5 million to equip, and about $1.5 million to $2 million a year to run. So if we extend ourselves out beyond the exterior of the city too far, then even though we're accommodating growth, it will be something that we will live to regret in that process. So we need to be very careful about infill. We need to be very utilizing the existing infrastructure that we have to accommodate the growth that we face.
Mr. Arredondo, San Marcos has been the fastest growing city in the nation for 3 years. Are you concerned that the infrastructure will be able to keep pace with the rapid growth of the city? Why or why not?
Of course there is concern. But again, I go back to jobs, job creation. Job creation will help alleviate the increased cost that can be borne by the new taxpayers that come to San Marcos and the new money that turns around in our community. I think that our city planning department and our engineering department are doing good work in trying to not only maintain our infrastructure, but are making future plans for the growth of San Marcos. We have a progressive city in the sense, the city management, in trying to keep San Marcos growing, keep the present infrastructure healthy and maintenance free. You know, the growth is not a problem. It can be a problem if you don't control it and grow it and manage it. And that's what I propose to do. When the economic development, job creation comes, we're going to guide them to an area where we have planned to put infrastructure where that can be absorbed, as well as the surrounding community areas where new homes are going to be built. So I think San Marcos is on the right track. We're going to keep up with the infrastructure.
Okay, Mr. Gregson, Kate's Camp has been a controversial topic, especially after the Memorial Day floods. Some say development caused more harm than good. How do you feel about the development of Kate's Camp?
I'm on the record, being against that project. In fact, I spoke publicly to both our Greater San Marcos Partnership Executive Board and to our Chambers Board to talk about utilizing that as a park. The citizens voted 74% to make it a park. The fire chief said we should be, the police chief said we should make it a park. The Parks Board said we should make it a park. And at the end of the day, not making it a park, what we've done is we've placed an incompatible use of multifamily housing on the periphery of an established neighborhood in our city. To me, that particular piece of land could have been the Central Park of Central Texas. It could have been a way to combine and connect a city that for years, for its lifetime, has been separated by a ribbon of concrete called I-35. We don't have an east-west connection other than TxDOT intersections to get there, or the river itself. So I think it's important that we think about what we lost in that process. That could have been a property in the public realm. It could have been a gorgeous park. They could have represented, I think, the most economic, the most substantial economic development statement this city could make for itself, showcasing its most significant asset. Now, do I think it caused additional damage? I think as a result of the berm that was there, I think water backed up. If you put a curb there, water would back up. So I think that while it didn't cause the flood, we all know the rain caused the flood. But at the same time, I think there were potential damages that were caused as a result of that water hitting that dam and backing up. Now, that situation has been resolved with the construction. But at the same time, that neighborhood, as it reestablishes itself after the flood, is going to be for generations to come impacted by things that it didn't anticipate when they settled it. I mean, these families. This is their most significant asset for most of them. It's their home. It's where they've lived for generations.
Time, is that finish your
Oh,
sentence?
sorry.
You good? You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
My time's up. I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Arredondo, Capes Camp has been a controversial topic, especially after the Memorial Day floods. Some say the development caused more harm than good. How do you feel about the development of Capes Camp?
I was not in San Marcos when the Woods apartments were being proposed and acted upon by the council. I lived in Blanco Gardens. My first home was in North Barber Drive. I was there when there was heavy rains and floods. And at the time that I lived there, the streets acted as drainage. It took the water away from the houses. It never got into my house when I was there. But in 1970 and 72, I was in 2 floods on Guadalupe Street. I waded in flood water up to my waist to get out of the house one time. So I know the anguish of the people in that neighborhood. Now, if it was up to me, I would have left Capes Camp the way it was. I have fond memories of going to Capes Camp. It was a private piece of property owned by the bank, and that's where I used to go for private picnics and to have good times. We all had an enjoyable time there. Now, we can't look back anymore. That's past. The building is there now. We need to look forward. And what I want to do is ensure that we have no further commercial development on our San Marcos River, and that we fix that Capes Camp area, Thompson's Island, so that we can enjoy what the beauty that God has given us in that piece of San Marcos. I would hope that not only that, but that the dam not be destroyed. I want that dam improved so we can keep all the natural habitat that's there. It's a treasure to San Marcos. We need to keep Thompson's Island.
Can I have my moment of rebuttal?
Sure.
Okay. It's interesting that, as my opponent mentions about keeping the balance on council, that balance brought us Capes Camp. That balance brought us the dilemma that we're facing today. It brought us a park that we really are going to have very, very difficult time ever using. The decisions made make a difference. Developments don't go away. Once they're here, they're on the ground for generations to come. And it's important that we have a council that makes the decisions based upon the right amount of research, listening to the right voices, and make sure that at the end of the day, we get what's best for San Marcos, not what's best just for a development company that comes here and wants to take some profits from us. It's important that we protect our environment, and this council didn't do that.
Mr. Arredondo?
Do the rules allow me to rebut?
You can rebut.
Now, what we all need to understand, economic and development are 2 different things. I'm talking about jobs, economic development. I'm not talking about development of housing or multifamily. That's 2 separate things. For my opponent to link me with that is unfair and untrue. I want everybody to understand I'm for job creation, economic development, not housing development, bedroom by rent development, or multi-family development on the San Marcos River. 2 distinct things.
Are you guys ready to move on to the next question? Anything else? Okay. Let's see.
Mr. Gregson, how do you plan to preserve the natural environment of San Marcos?
Well, I think, one, I'll go back and restate that I've been advocating for candidates and working for candidates and representatives on our city council for the last decade that have made it their effort to protect our environment. One of the things we can do is we can make certain that, as we've seen in this last flood issue, we cannot place development, we can't place our citizens in harm's way when these floodwaters happen. We live in a river city, we live in a two-river city. And so it's important that we really focus on where development should go. Now, as I've talked about earlier, the comprehensive master plan begins to take that into consideration, where we place things, where our density is going to be, and so we must make sure we don't place development close to that. Secondly, I think that we need to make certain that as we don't allow additional development to go along with rivers as well. I mean, commercial type developments. We need to back away that environment. The other part is we have an aquifer that we develop over as well. We need to be very careful. I've seen development done very successfully over the aquifer, but it's something that we need to be very, very careful about. And those decisions, once again, sit with city council. So it's important who we elect. It's important that we are allowed to leave our great environment for our future generations.
Mr. Arredondo, how do you plan to preserve the natural environment of San Marcos?
Well, I'm in agreement with my opponent about preserving our natural habitat. The river is a resource that we need to treasure. I think that the way to preserve our way of life here in San Marcos as we know it is to be vigilant, to work on the master plan, to know where we're going to put development. There's an opportunity that we have, and we can be a model for the state in creating jobs for San Marcos, an opportunity for people to get good paying jobs and also preserve our river. I understand from the Park Service that about 70% of the people who use our river are people from out of town. So not only do we, the inhabitants, enjoy the river, but we have outsiders coming in. We need to be certain that our river is kept free of debris and flows as naturally as possible.
Okay, Mr. Gregson, are you for or against Prop 1, a city charter amendment prohibiting the addition of industrial fluoride to San Marcos's water supply?
I'm for fluoride in their water, personally, but ultimately it's the people's choice. And that choice will be made, and as a council member, I know we've had situations in the past where our city council hasn't abided by the wishes of the people. And if elected, I'll stand by that vote.
Okay. Mr. Arredondo, are you for or against Prop 1, a city charter amendment prohibiting the addition of industrial fluoride to San Marcos's water supply?
I'm for fluoride. This has come before the city before previous years. In talking to several dentists in town, they lament the fact that this is even before the voters. The health of our children is very important, especially those that are disadvantaged. Fluoridation helps them maintain a healthy teeth structure. Those communities who have kept fluoride being in their water in 5 years, it shows up in the children's teeth. So we need to keep fluoride in San Marcos.
Okay, and before we do a final question and closing statements, we're going to open up questions to the audience, and then we'll head to Twitter. Does anyone here have a question for either of our candidates?
Someone? Yeah.
Way over there. I wrote it because I know that whenever you get up, you forget about it. So, I've heard the talk about the people voting and people wanting the parkland and not having it developed commercially. But what I hear left out often is that people didn't vote to fund it. Can any of you expand on that perspective?
If I remember correctly from reading, because I wasn't here in town, I was working out of town when this occurred, is that, yes, I think the overwhelming majority wanted parkland. But there was another question, would you want your taxes increased, you pay for it, and that was turned down. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I feel, just to recap that piece that was confirmed for me, I didn't create it. We get this message that we want the river, we want the park, we want all these things. I voted for it. I love my river, I love my town. But at the same time, nobody wanted to step up and fund it. And so I think all of us in this room would say we love the trees and we love the river. Hello, that's why we're here. We love it, and it's also being used politically to create division. Either you're for business or you're against the environment, and I think that's wrong too. So I am for business. I am very interested in business, and I'm very interested in preserving
Sir, do you
my
have a
environment.
question?
And so my question to you, to summarize for you, my question to you is, why is this environmental angle continuously thrown in front of us as voters when it's two separate pieces?
I'll tell you, Mr. Becerra. Because we've enjoyed our city for a long time. We've gained additional parkland, and we haven't increased taxes for it yet. We've got a tract called the Liga tract that was traded for some of that property at one point in time. That's in the process of being sold. It could be used to fund that. There were a variety of other funding sources for that. And those choices were made unilaterally of the people's choice to make the decision to buy that park. There are other financing and sourcing ways to do that. For example, I'll give you another. Back at the time the Rio Vista Dam was about to be breached, we borrowed money from the electric utility fund to pay for it being fixed on an emergency basis. There are pockets of dollars in this city that we can do. We find ways to do things, and I think we could have found a way to do that too. And so to say that there had to be a connection between, sure, nobody wants more taxes, but at the same time, people wanted that park. And that park had one chance to be acquired. It was one chance to become in the public realm. So I think it is a valid issue that we made that decision in the wrong way. The council made that decision for the wrong purposes. That's my stance.
Mr. Arredondo, do you have any statement?
No, a statement's been made, that the community wanted it as a park, but the community also said we don't want to increase the taxes. And yes, there may be pockets of funds here or there. Would they be sufficient? I don't know. I was on the council, I wasn't here in San Marcos. And there are some large nonprofits that provide money for conservatory purposes. I don't know if that could have been accessed or not. Knowing the city government that I do know, I think they would have explored all those avenues and brought propositions to the people.
Are there any other questions from the audience before we move to Twitter? Okay, Iman?
I'm just gonna.
Yeah, just project.
All right.
Project.
Okay, sorry, let me go to that.
Did anybody ask this question?
Oh, we have a lot. That's a
Some
problem.
people ask questions.
There are a lot of
Guys
questions.
are very
Okay.
popular.
For the first question, in terms of policy making, how will you choose to act in situations in which the best interests of the university and the interests of the city's non-student population are in competition?
Whoever wants to go first. Mr. Gregson.
The non-student population,
Mhm.
so the citizens of the city.
Yes.
As a city council member, my allegiance is to the city, the citizens of the city. That includes you as our guests while you're here and other folks who live here. Now, I think that I would give due consideration to those who live here because you are guests. You're here usually for a shorter period of time, most of you at least, although we hope many of you would join us for your lifetime. But I think that would have to be balanced. I mean, it shouldn't have to be a choice. Right decisions are right decisions. And so I think at the end of the day, with the right amount of research, right amount of thought, right amount of input from both sides, that a logical decision will be made to satisfy both sides.
Mr. Arredondo, do you need the question repeated?
Please.
Okay. In terms of policy making, how will you choose to act in situations in which the best interests of the university and the interests of the city's non-student population are in competition?
First of all, I consider students as well as community members as residents of this community rather than guests. I believe that good communication and meeting with the city administration and the university administration, we could better coordinate what's taking place. I don't think that there's any kind of animosity or competition between one or the other. We have to remember one is that the university is a state institution. The state trumps local control. So I learned from my mother a long time ago that you do better with honey than you can with vinegar. So I would want to get together and meet with the university and explore ways how we can work jointly together for the common good.
Okay.
One more.
Okay. All right. Past city council members have been board members of GSMP. Are either of you board members? And if you are, or if you're not, do you believe it's a conflict of interest?
Mr. Gregson.
I think that we should, I'm not. I have been on the board some time ago. I resigned. I think that it's not a conflict. I mean, we're a major contributor to GSMP. I think it's important that we have a voice, both in their governance as well as their activities. And so they have a more special role with us than they do with other communities because they act as our sole economic development arm. So we're looking to them at this point to make sure that happens, to be able to provide the jobs that we both talk about, that we both want. I mean, there's not a scintilla difference between Mr. Arredondo's position and mine with respect to getting great jobs for the city. I want career-based jobs to make sure that you guys will be able to be employed, not necessarily just distribution jobs, which are also important for our economy, but I don't know if you can show me your hands, how many of you here are going to go to work for a distribution company and you're going to college for that when you leave? My thought is that's not the case. So we got work to do to make certain that we provide you those types of jobs. But with respect to GSMP, I don't see there any conflict at all for an annual investment of $360,000.
Okay. Past city council members have been board members of GSMP. Are you, and whether you are or not, do you feel it's a conflict of interest?
I'm not a member of the GSMP. I'm an ardent supporter of the GSMP. And this unique organization is a private-public entity. The public entities contribute to the budget of the GSMP, as do private investors. And I believe that the city, as an investor, deserves a board position or two to help make the decisions on what they're going to do. I believe that talking about wanting a job as a distributor for college students is really a no-brainer. What I see Amazon being, as I said earlier, it's a bellwether for the industry. Other large corporations, tech companies, will come to San Marcos because Amazon has done the work. A lot of those companies look to get done. We're sitting between Austin and San Antonio, a tech center and a hub of San Antonio businesses. We're in an ideal position to entice good paying jobs that are, as Mr. Gregson says, career-based.
Okay, last call for questions from the audience. No, that's fine. Okay. Our final question, Mr. Gregson, what experience do you have that makes you the best candidate for place 5?
I think I've got, I'm a parent. I'm soon to be a grandfather for the first time. I've got 2 grown children. I've got a degree that I paid for, 2 degrees that I paid for. I've got a successful business career. I run companies that are off or near the size of the city of San Marcos. And from that standpoint, I've got lots of local government experience here on boards and commissions. I feel like that I have the skill sets, the experience, the background, the analytical skills to bring a lot to the city council. So from that standpoint, I think I bring a different balance than my opponent suggests. I'm focused on keeping our neighborhoods safe and secure, helping our neighborhoods out, not necessarily just benefiting development. Growth's important, we're gonna have it. Let's make sure we have it in the right spot. And so I think I'm the one who has had the background and the 10 years of being on the record for supporting candidates who want to protect our city, neighborhoods, and our environment. Thank you.
Mr. Arredondo, what experience do you have that makes you the best candidate for Place 5?
I'm a parent, I'm a grandfather, I have 7 grandchildren and 5 children that are all in San Marcos. Above that is I've been in public office, I've served this community, and I've served people in the state of Texas in various capacities that I've had employment. I believe that with me, you're going to get seasoned leadership, experience, and common sense, something that's drastically needed. I know that since I was on the council, technology has increased. Other things in the city have changed when I was there, but one thing that never changes is common sense. And that's what I want to bring to the dais. I'm an advocate for people in San Marcos who need a voice. I'm well known here in the community. Those who have been here for a number of years know that I have done things for this community and in several neighborhoods. They didn't have paved streets before I got on the council. When I got off the council, they had paved streets, gutters, and sidewalks. And when I do something, I take action. I just don't talk.
Okay, we will now move into the closing statement portion of the debate. You will each have 2 minutes. Mr. Gregson?
Thank you. Thank you again for the invitation to be here and for all of you coming and listening to us have our conversation. I think you have 2 distinct candidates here. There's a clear choice to make. I've supported candidates in efforts to protect our neighborhoods, protect our environment. The people that I've supported have been on the record for that and have done it relentlessly and tirelessly over the last decade. But we have a job to do too. We've got a job to get you a job. Not just any job, but a quality job. And those are information type jobs. Those are jobs that pay not the living wage, but well above the living wage so that you can raise a family, you can educate your children, you can put money away for a rainy day fund and ultimately put money away for retirement too. We've got to be able to do that here in San Marcos. We owe it to you to give you that opportunity. It may not be you because you may be graduating sooner than we can make all that happen, but that's not to say we shouldn't start right now to make it work. The other thing we need to do is we need to respect our environment. We have a unique place here. I love San Marcos. I may have gotten here a few years later than my opponent, but I love this city, no less than anybody here. And I want to protect it. We have a unique charm and character that many of you, I think, probably made a decision to come to this university as a result of. And I want to keep that. I'm committed to keep that. Elections matter. I need your vote and your support, and I ask for it. I'm Scott Gregson. Thank you.
Mr. Arredondo?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us here. I always like being around young people. You bring a lot of energy to our community. I should know with 7 grandchildren, every time I get around them, it gives me vigor and I feel younger than what I am. And I pay for it the next day. You know, I offered myself for service because I've been in an elected position before. And I know that I can do the job that this calls for. I also want our neighborhoods respected. I want jobs for San Marcos. And I want jobs for you once you graduate, or if you don't graduate, that you can stay here in San Marcos and get a good paying job. They may not be career-based, or they could be career-based. It depends on what you want. I see a lot of students that graduate and they get jobs that doesn't require a degree. What I want to bring to San Marcos, as I said before, is seasoned leadership. I want to bring experience and common sense. Common sense trumps everything in our lives. You've heard this from your parents and your grandparents. they've been there and they tell you things for a reason because they've experienced it. And that's where I come from. You know, the youth usually think they know everything and don't want to be told anything, but it's funny that when you get a few years older, you say, they were right. I am right for San Marcos. I am the one to help this community get jobs, to give a voice to the community, and to be the best city councilman that the council has on the dais. I ask for your votes. I ask for you to go to the polls. I ask for you to vote early. Vote for me, Frank Arredondo. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the Place 5 portion of our debate. So we're going to take a little 5-minute break, run to the restroom, grab some water, and we're going to reconvene here for Place 6. Let's give it up for Place 5, please.